Hi, I'm Dr. Rovetti, chiropractic physician, designated impairment rating physician, state of Nevada. Today I'm going to talk about the combined value chart that's in the book. Now, if you're an attorney or an insurance adjuster, you understand what the combined value chart is. You probably know a little bit about it. We're going to go into real big detail about it. If you're a patient, you may be concerned about it because you'll see it in your report and you'll think it's addition, but it's really not. It's combining when they do two different numbers. So let me tell you what the basis of the combined value chart is. The authors of the guides and common sense tells you that if you have a 50% impaired body part and then another 30% impaired body part and then maybe another 50% impaired body part, if you add them all together, you're going to get in that case 130% impaired. The body simply can't have more than 100% impaired. In fact, I think the guidebook says if you're 100% impaired, you're dead, basically. So they come up with a formula where instead of adding the different impairments, you combine them. And it's a formula they use where it can never get more than 100%. So let me show you in the book where this is. Okay, this is the AMA guidebook, 5th edition, and inside it they have the combined value chart. And on this edition it starts on page 604. And frankly, if you have any other edition of the guides, the combined value chart is exactly the same. You'll see right up the top here, the formula they use is A plus B times 1 minus A. And basically what this means, if you're having, for example, you're combining two different impairments. One is for 10% and the other is for 20%. You're starting with the 10% and then you're adding 90% of the 20%. It's a little confusing, and because it's confusing using this formula, they put all the numbers in a chart. And I'll give you an example of a combined value. First off, you take the smallest one first, and then, the largest one first, and then you go across and you combine the other one with it. For example, a 10% along with a 20%, a 10% and a 10%, is going to give you 19%. 20% and a 10%, for example, you start at 20 and you go over, that'll give you a 28%. So that's how it works. Basically, the biggest number first, and then you combine it with the smaller number. Just because they don't want the chart filling the whole page, otherwise you could begin with a small number and end with a bigger number. But anyhow, all these numbers are using this formula here, and they round it to the nearest whole number. All right, a couple things about the combined value chart that you should know. When you're combining two numbers whose addition is 14 or less, then combining those two numbers is the same as adding them. So if you get like a 7 and a 6, it's going to be 13 on the combined values chart, because you can add them. Conversely, if you're combining two numbers that are fairly large, the combined values chart will take a few points away from that, if that makes sense. So the higher you go up, the more it's affected by the combined value chart versus adding, versus smaller numbers. 14 or under, they're simply adding. Sometimes 15 or 16, depends on what numbers they are, how close they are together. That's also adding. But usually over 17 is always a difference of at least 1% point. A couple other things about combined value chart is when you have two different impairments, if they're in the same joint, then they're added versus combined, and the rating physician should know that. For example, on this joint of this finger, if you have problems bending it and extending it, for example, that's as far as you can go straight, and then that's as far as you can go bending, you would add those two numbers, and then you'd combine it with the other joints. One more exception is the thumb. All the thumb joints are added together because it's such an integral part of gripping. And then the only other thing too is you'll find on page 438 of the guides, in this section right down here, it said if 3 or more values are be combined, the 2 lowest values are first selected and their combined value is found, and then you combine value with the third value are then to give the total value. So with when you're combining 3 different values, you start with the lowest and you go up the line that way. Sometimes that'll produce a higher percentage than doing it the other way, but I go by this section in the guidebooks as a rule of thumb to do the lowest first. So that's what combined value is versus adding, and hope you found that useful.